Keir Starmer has done what few leaders dare, and what no prime minister should ever even consider. What started as quiet backroom politics has detonated into a full-blown national uproar. Now, Starmer finds himself at the center of what many are calling the most chilling attack on British democracy in a generation. And this isn't political theater, it's deadly serious. The courts have already agreed to fast-track the case, citing overwhelming public interest. Why? Because at the heart of it lies a chilling accusation that Starmer has used the machinery of the law itself to silence political rivals and entrench his own power. This all revolves around the so-called Devolution Reform Act, a bill publicly branded as a step forward, a bold move to empower local voices and strengthen community-led governance. Starmer hailed it as the next chapter in democratic progress. But peel back the polished language and ceremonial fanfare, and the picture darkens fast. Legal analysts say the act doesn't disperse power, it concentrates it. Not outwards to local leaders, but upward, to Westminster. In effect, it hands the Prime Minister's office the tools to stall local elections, block candidates, and override decisions made by councils. The line between reform and regime just got dangerously blurred. On paper, the legislation claimed to be a modern reboot of regional democracy. In reality, it looks more like a hostile takeover. And the timing? Far from innocent. Just weeks after Reform UK stunned the nation in the 2025 local elections, scoring victories in places long considered Labour or Tory strongholds, Starmer's government moved with surgical speed. Instead of acknowledging the democratic will of voters, his administration dismantled reform-led councils in regions like Lincolnshire, Kent, and Staffordshire. In their place, unelected regional authorities were installed. Quietly, methodically, and often with direct ties to the Labour establishment. Elections were postponed. Council meetings suspended. Reform UK candidates were disqualified with little more than vague compliance reviews and a maze of bureaucratic barriers. No explanation. No debate. Just action. Swift. Silent. Sweeping. The message was clear: vote the wrong way, and your voice vanishes. Reform UK sounded the alarm instantly, calling the moves a brazen political coup. Their candidates barred from by-elections, their supporters disenfranchised, entire communities now sat in a democracy blackout. What had been sold to the public as a renewal of democracy was beginning to resemble a full-scale power grab. To many across the political spectrum, this wasn't strategy, it was sabotage. Not politics as usual, but a slow-motion demolition of the democratic foundation itself. The accusations grew darker. Leaked documents began to surface. Internal Labour memos suggested top officials had met in secret, urgently discussing how to neutralise Reform UK's growing influence, not through debate or elections, but through manipulation of systems and laws. Redrawn boundaries surgically sliced reform strongholds out of existence. New eligibility rules, impossible to meet on short notice, were quietly inserted, targeting the grassroots movement that had propelled Reform UK into the spotlight. In one Midlands town, a 62-year-old retiree, longtime reform supporter, arrived to vote in a by-election. The ballot didn't even list his party. Calmly, he spoiled his ballot on camera, whispering, "This isn't democracy." Minutes later, police arrested him. The charge? Violating misinformation laws quietly embedded in the same Devolution Act. That footage exploded across the internet. Within hours, protests erupted in over 40 towns. What started as frustration over missing ballots transformed into something much larger, a movement. A reckoning. Political opposition was no longer being outvoted. It was being outlawed. Civil rights groups, investigative journalists, and opposition leaders began documenting a troubling pattern. Activists fined. Dissenters arrested. Campaigners silenced. Labour officials tried to brush it all off, random incidents, they claimed. But the pattern was unmistakable. Legal experts began warning of an authoritarian slide, one masked not by force, but by legislation. A quiet erosion, hidden beneath layers of paperwork, regulations, and legal jargon. Behind closed doors, internal labor communications painted a stark picture. The goal wasn't reform, it was domination. Not policy, it was suppression. Starmer, once seen as the man to restore faith in politics, now stood accused of engineering a system that punishes those who dare to challenge him. The democracy he pledged to protect was being used as a weapon against the very people it was meant to serve. The implications were massive. This wasn't about political rivalry anymore. It was about whether Britain's democracy could even function. Whether voting still mattered. Whether law and leadership were being used as shields or swords. For voters who once believed in the system, the veil had dropped. The rules weren't just being rewritten, they were being erased. Starmer's Labour, once the party of the working class, the underdog, the people, was now seen by many as the architect of a democratic backslide. The very law that was supposed to empower local communities had become a political grenade. And now, the courts are being asked to step in, to rule not just on legality, but on morality. On the soul of the nation. This case isn't just Starmer's political reckoning. It's Britain's democratic crucible. Everything is on the line. The integrity of regional governance, the credibility of electoral institutions, and the very essence of what it means to live in a representative democracy. The courtroom has become the arena for a far bigger question: can power be wielded without corrupting the very foundation it rests upon? For many across the UK, this is no longer politics. It's a test of the nation's democratic DNA. Will the system correct itself, or collapse under the weight of its own contradictions? And make no mistake. Whatever the court decides, this moment will echo through history. It will be taught in classrooms, debated in parliaments, analyzed in documentaries. The day Britain had to ask itself, are we still a democracy, or just playing dress-up with the vocabulary of one? This was not a routine update. It was a warning flare over Westminster. And as always, we want to be absolutely clear, our only goal is to deliver truthful, verified news. There's no agenda here, just the facts. If you found this important, let your voice be heard. Like the video, leave a comment below, and subscribe.